We are back with Gurus on Reality, episode number trace. This is going to be a Big Brother special. It's going to be a BB27 recap. We'll spend some time on that. This season was really wonky, a lot of twists and turns, but at the end of the day, Ashley comes out victorious. We'll talk about her status amongst winners, the legacy of this season, and then how to fix this franchise. We kind of teased this on our last episode at the very end. We talked about some things that should improve with Survivor. We didn't get too much into it, but we are going to be in the weeds today with Big Brother. We've been teasing this for weeks. This franchise, although it had good ratings this season, it still needs a lot of fine-tuning. It's X, it's Mike. Mike, I know you were a little under the weather last week. How are we feeling now? The Jays, of course, get the bye. The Dolphins get the win. The vibes have to be high.
The vibes are at an all-time high this week. Obviously, the Jays winning on Sunday and getting the number one seed, and then the Dolphins winning on Monday for the first time all season. So we are at the pinnacle of as we head to October. So I'm doing the best I can. That was the highlight to the end of September, which was a rough month for my teams, but it finished on a good note. Now let's get into reality. Let's get into some reality television, which is obviously what we want to talk about.
Yeah, it's a good sports equinox season. It's kind of the turn of the reality season calendar. Of course, We have Amazing Race and Survivor, the latter of which we'll be covering. We have Traitors in a few months. We just talked about that off air. So we'll definitely be doing this weekly as well. Sports are at a big time right now, but this feels like a massive episode, a stamping of the early life of the Gurus on Reality podcast. I'm really excited for this because, Mike, Big Brother 27 was kind of fascinating. I think it's being looked at a bit with rose-tinted glasses the last few days because of how it ended. Ashley was a fan favorite, particularly in the Twitter sphere. Yeah. She really had a cult following throughout the season, and she comes out victorious. We'll get into that in a little bit, but let's just start here. This season, I think, more than anything, will be marked by poor gameplay. I think it was kind of strange from the beginning that they brought on Rachel, who, again, kind of helped stabilize the ratings of the show in a massive way. That's why they inserted her in there. I totally understand that. But having such a cerebral Big Brother player who understands the franchise from top to bottom, is a fan of the franchise as well. Some of these players aren't in the weeds like Rachel has been. And you have her in a cast with so many inept game players. Mike, I think from the beginning, this was just never really going to work the way they wanted it to, and I think you saw that throughout. It felt like Rachel was playing the entire game with like her back against the wall, but everyone also watching her back, if that makes sense, as far as like she was doing everything to keep the season afloat from an entertainment standpoint, but more for our standards here, a strategic standpoint. And it just always felt like from the beginning that it was just going to be weird to see how everything unfolded. And I think it ended okay. But for the most part, I think this was a season that from the beginning, we both kind of knew it was going to be a little strange.
Yeah, no, it's definitely strange. I actually enjoyed the season, despite all that nonsense.
I did too, yeah.
It was very wonky. The cast, we'll get into it, was not very good, not very strategic at all. The last time Big Brother did something like this was BB19 when they brought back Paul as the only returner. They gave him that first week of safety, which they did to Rachel as well here. That season, critics didn't really like. It was all about friendship, and Paul made a bunch of alliances, but made a bunch of final twos, and went the game and lost at the end in the final two. This one was weird because there was so many twists. The mastermind thing every few weeks was doing something weird. Rachel getting eliminated off of a puzzle. Keanu getting eliminated on like a random eviction with like an hour to strategize. Very strange season, but I enjoyed it. I think that the cast overall, despite not knowing what they were doing really for the most part, made it an enjoyable season because I feel like it was very unpredictable. We didn't really have any idea what was going to happen. We all figured Morgan was the go-ahead winner at a certain point. But throughout all parts of the season, I had different guesses as to what was going on, and it kind of made for an interesting final push to the end. Although with the way they put it up, it was 7 people left with a week and a half left to the finale, so they kind of crammed in all this late game stuff. So also the scheduling of the season was very weird. They only had one double eviction all season, and it came at final 7 to get us to final 5. So they really prolonged this early game. I mean, it took us an hour, felt like, to get to the jury, which was a checkpoint for everybody. But I was just like, let's get on with this thing. Like we're slowing things down here. I don't need to see a million Kellys put up every week and a million blockbusters be played every week. So that certainly dampened the mood. But overall, I actually had fun watching the season. I thought, aside from the orchestrated drama at these nomination ceremonies and these veto meetings, I was somewhat impressed about some of these characters on the season. Like I was at least invested in some of the characters on the season, which is more than most seasons can give me. So if I'm invested in a few characters, then I'm not going to complain super bad about that.
So I know one of our popular critiques the other day with Survivor was there are way too many just pure, we love this show so much. It's been our entire life dream to go on this show. And then when they're on the island, they kind of fold. Big Brother is kind of the opposite, especially nowadays. There's far more of a recruit culture. A lot of these people have no idea what they're watching. They're in the show. They're in the season itself, and they don't even know how it works yet. I remember Riley in the beginning of the season didn't even know the live eviction episode was on Thursdays. He had no idea. Kelly, I believe she actually...
She didn't know she was on camera 24/7.
Right, and I think she actually did, and I think that was just her trying to cause something, but regardless, maybe not, who knows? So it's just one of these things where you watch the show, and to me, I enjoyed it, but I don't think I enjoyed it for Big Brother. I enjoyed it in the way I enjoyed like a messy Bachelorette season, where there's just a lot of chaos, there's a lot of characters, there's fun to be had, but it's not necessarily strategic. The gameplay is lacking severely. So yeah, I totally agree with you. The characters themselves, some of them were pretty fun, but for the most part, it was like it felt not manufactured, because I think most of the people outside of Ava were authentic, but it just felt like something was lacking the whole time for me, as far as it being a Big Brother season. It felt more like if you just slapped it on YouTube and called it something else, that maybe I could have got some more enjoyment of it. But because it had the Big Brother backing and the Big Brother logo and whatnot, for me, there was just something about it that was off. And I think it was because these recruits just didn't have that wherewithal of how to, play a few weeks in advance, how to manipulate others to get what you actually want, instead of being like Keanu and just talking down to people, or Vince just crying in their face. So there was just a lot of that going on. And to me, it just felt, well, like I said, just a little lackluster, although I do enjoy this season. It is one of my favorites of kind of the modern era post All-Stars too. So yeah, there's that. But Mike, I want to transition gears. I want to get to Vince in particular, because he's caught a lot of flack the last few days, deservedly so. And we're not even going to touch the personal stuff. Maybe we will later, but not for now. We're just going to talk about purely his game. He was borderline dominant throughout this with Morgan. They were a tandem, and they ran the show for much of the post-Rachel eviction of this season. Or not even elimination, excuse me, because she wasn't actually evicted.
She wasn't actually evicted, right.
But yeah, so Vince was really fantastic from a competition standpoint and aligning himself with the other strongest player in the house. But as far as his final speech was concerned, when he had a chance to particularly get that jury back on his side, he folded maybe worse than I've ever seen anyone in my entire life watching this show. You saw it. What did you think live? Because I know we were talking about it, and we were like, he had a kind of an opening that I don't think I've heard anyone talk about, and we'll get into, and he just didn't take advantage of it.
He had a brief opening, but most of the questions were, hey, Vince, why did you cry so much? Hey, Vince, why did you Hey, Vince, why did you backstab me so much?
Hey, Vince, why do you suck? And why is Ashley the greatest woman who's ever walked this earth?
Hey, Vince, why did your game suck so bad? And hey, Ashley, tell me how good your game was. It was a very weird question. So at that point, I kind of knew, okay, Vince has no shot. But yes, Morgan did give him a kind of a glimmer of hope with her question, and he didn't really take advantage of it. He did fold. I'm gonna get on Vince here for a second, because I know you kind of have a different take about this. I thought Vince lost the game the second that and we talked about this on the podcast last week. I think once we realized in real time that Ashley won part 2 of the HOH, I said it. I think Vince has no chance of winning the game, because either Morgan takes him to final 2 and he loses, or Ashley takes him to final 2 and takes out Morgan, which I'll get into. Actually, no, I won't get into it. I'll just say it straight up. Keanu said after the game, because the interviewer asked about in the post-game interview, she said, Keanu, was it ever like a debate, Ashley and Vince? Was Ashley going to win anyways? And he said, no, I had no idea. I was actually going to vote for Vince had Vince made the move to get out Morgan in final 2. Had Vince made the move that Ashley did, win the final HOH, take out Morgan, cut her at the final 3, he said that would have been, to me, the biggest move of the season. He said that, Keanu said, the biggest move of the season would have been taking out Morgan. And Ashley, who made no moves the entire season, unfortunately made the biggest move of the season, according to Keanu, which is what got her his vote. So I don't think Vince was done as far as a Vince Ashley final 2. I think he was done because he was brought to final 2 like a goat. So I don't think there was really much he could do in the questions. I think they mostly had their minds made up. The second that Ashley was the person who evicted Morgan, when they saw Morgan come out of the final three, and they saw that Ashley was the one who did it, I think it was kind of an uphill battle for Vince anyways. You'll get to the question part of it. I think Vince lost this game in the pre-jury. I think who you put on the jury matters, and I detailed this, early season. I said, I don't know what the heck Vince is doing in the early stages of this game. You vote out Adrian, who was loyal to a fault to Vince, and you keep Will. Will's now on the jury. Adrian is not. Adrian possibly a vote for you in the jury. Will obviously going to vote for Ashley because he's closer to Ashley. So Vince made some evictions in the pre-jury that I had no idea what he was doing. Voting out his allies. He voted out Zach. Well, no, he didn't vote out Zach. He was on the block with Zach. He voted out Riley. He voted out, obviously, Adrian over Will, who he wasn't working with at the time. He voted out Catherine, or he put Catherine on the block as an HOH, which I didn't understand. I figured once you get out Riley, which is fine. I'm not even going to harp on him for getting out Riley. But once you get out Riley, Catherine at this point is a, free agent. That's one. If I was Vince, I would have brought in Catherine and said, hey, we can mend fences here. Because Catherine, the only person Catherine was linked to was Lauren, who Vince was also working with. It would have been an easy trio there, and you can bring in Keanu, who nobody was working with at the time, and you could bring in Kelly. And those five could have ran the game. Ultimately, what Vince did was he went with the judges when he won that Wall Cup HOH, and he put up Catherine, who was no threat at all to win the game. And I think ultimately that being Mickey was the last one before the jury, but the jury was entirely full of Ashley's friends. We talked about this in the podcast last week. The entire jury was people who liked Ashley, or just hated Vince in some people's cases. So it's like I don't think he did a good job of putting people on the jury who would actually vote for him to win $750,000. So the questions, could he have done better? Of course he could have done better. But I really think he lost his game from really the first few weeks of the season. I think he did not play it as clean as he could have. And ultimately his only path was cutting Morgan in final three and probably winning that way. It was a very sloppy game, I believe. Yeah,
you mentioned Keanu's post-game conference, if you will, where he talked about that. And I believe it was Lauren who I saw said that there was a lot of Vince vitriol in the jury. There was a lot of people that, no matter what happened, even if he was there, they were just so scorned by him, they probably weren't voting for him anyway. My problem is two things. One, Vince had a chance to at least make a point that maybe could have resonated with some people. Sure. Ashley was rambling on for a while, and it was impressive to a point, but she was repeating herself quite a bit throughout her speech. And one of the things she repeated, which I would not have said whatsoever, was that she was kind of hiding behind Vince and Morgan. And if I was Vince, I would have said, did you just hear what she just said? She said she was hiding behind me. I was the one who was making an imprint on this game while Ashley was kind of operating around the fringes, and she's only here because we allowed her to be. And I thought if he just made that simple point, that perhaps that could have changed some perspective, at least from an audience standpoint. I think the jurors already had their mind made up, but I think if he had any shot at all, he at least had to make that point. And I was stunned that he had two opportunities to do it. He had it. There was a question before that he was asked that he could have slipped it in there. And then, of course, the Morgan question, he really could have kind of hinged his framing on that, and he didn't at all. And I was like, is this guy even trying right now? It felt like he just kind of waved the white flag and understood what was happening before him. But I think Vince really lost a little later than you did. I think he lost Final Four when he voted out Ava. And I think that's easy to say now because Ashley won the season. But again, if you're just in Vince's shoes, he was trying to stay loyal to the judges, and he didn't respect Ashley's game. He just didn't think she was a fan of the show. He didn't respect her operating in the shadows. And to a point, I kind of understand what he's saying. To me, I think Ashley's social game is being dramatically overstated the last few days. Yeah, overblown for sure. I think she was a good gamer, not a great gamer, because she never had power to actually make moves. And even when there were other people in power, it's not like she was influencing their decisions for the most part either. The only thing that she was really influencing was to make sure she wasn't in the line of fire, which is incredibly important. But I think part of Big Brother that you have to show capability of, at least what I thought and what I've enjoyed throughout, is kind of influencing others' moves. And I just think she didn't do that to my standards. And Vince was so pessimistic about her chances to win, even though it was so incredibly obvious that Vince, A, caused a bitter jury, and B, that they all liked Ashley on a personal level, that if he just cut off Ashley, then I think if it was Vince and Ava in the final two chairs, Vince would have won maybe unanimously. because they would have at least respected that he played this slimy game throughout. He could have owned up to not only cutting Ashley, but cutting Morgan, presumably, if that was the case it went to.
Do that, yeah.
Vince could have messed up for an hour and a half of the competition they just had, and I think he still beats Ava. I just don't know what world Ava beats him in that Part 2 HOH, even with Vince messing up and throwing a temper tantrum. So it's one of those things where Vince had a path to the very end. He had a path as soon as Final Four, and he blew it. And again, even if you want to say if Vince cut off Morgan, was there a chance that he would beat Ashley? I'm not sure.
At least that's Keanu's vote, but I still think he loses the game. Right?
I still think he loses Mike, because you want to know why? I think cutting Morgan was their excuse to vote Ashley from a strategic standpoint, but it was so obvious. Why should you get such an abundance of credit for beating Morgan, in one competition that was a crapshoot? It wasn't like it was some physical competition or even some you remember the old days where they would say the quote by the player and you have to see if it was true or false or whatnot. Yeah, I think that's actually paying attention to the show and paying attention to the people around you. The actual questions they asked were so ridiculous that, okay, good for Ashley for winning, and it was impressive that she was able to pull it out when she needed to, but come on, her winning 2 comps. Again, it's not a competition show. It's a strategic show. Yeah. It's all about social interaction, but at the same time, I just thought her credit for making such an obvious move was getting so overblown. It was actually making me upset, because I think he was kind of distorting her impact on the season as a whole.
Well, unfortunately, this was a season that did not have that many moves. I mean, first of all, nobody got out Rachel.
All the moves were 2 weeks late at best.
Exactly. So the biggest move of the season, according to Keanu, was the most obvious one, which is vote out Morgan. Who's going to be the one to evict Morgan? And Ashley on a silver platter because Vince threw a temper tantrum, and that's really when Vince lost the game. When he blew that second part HOH, he lost the game in effect, because you heard after the show. I mean, Morgan said in her post-game interview she would have taken Ashley, so she would have cut Vince in the final 3. So he would have lost if Morgan won the final HOH, and then obviously if Ashley was the final HOH, which she did, she takes Vince and he loses in a landslide. Right. So he was screwed the second he lost that. He just didn't read the prompt that just said,
or didn't think to reread it, which I thought was unbelievable. Maybe he should have just checked it, once more.
You're gonna keep buzzing in wrong answers and not be like, okay, is it maybe something I read wrong? Because obviously I didn't get my days wrong. He's been in the house long enough to know that the days aren't wrong. But instead he just didn't reread the prompt, or maybe he did reread the prompt and still didn't really see that it said order instead of days. Either way, right. It's on him. Ultimately, he blew it in the final 3. He blew it in the final 4 by not voting out Ava. He blew it. I go back to the early starts of the game where I feel like he played very messy and put friends on the jury that were not his friends. And Ashley kept repeating herself. I made my enemies my allies, and Vince made his allies his enemies. And she kind of kept rehearsing that point, and Vince kind of looked a little frazzled. It's like he didn't really know what to say. Ultimately, it's like he's like, oh crap, I guess I made a lot of final 2s and people don't like me now. It almost felt like he knew his game was over the second Ashley started her speech. It didn't look like a full effort there until the last speech when we came back from commercial break and he was like, okay, closing statements to the jury. I thought he had a nice run there at the end. He kind of made some solid points. I was like, yes, finally, Vince is hitting on some points that maybe actually matter. It's like, hey, he played Big Brother. Ashley didn't really play Big Brother. Again, fine social game, whatever, but you do ultimately have to have power to make decisions and stand by him. And she didn't make a single decision all game.
And Mike, that doesn't mean winning competitions either. It could just be aligning yourself with those in power and kind of manipulating them, because they talked about Morgan running Vince's HOHs. Whose HOH or veto or whatever did Ashley run throughout the season? She didn't. So that's why I thought it was so blasphemous when they were talking about her social game. Yes, everyone liked her, and that is a good thing. But at the same time, a great social game in Big Brother also means, again, as you hit on a few times there, just influencing those who have any type of power to make decisions that benefit you. And even if that means just kind of reinforcing them, which she did at a point, she was just kind of telling people what they wanted to hear, and that was smart of her. But she never really went out of her way to influence a move that wasn't going to be made or something of that nature. So
everything was already going to happen anyways, but without her input.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, people say, oh, she was playing the game from day one. Like, she was strategizing. It's like, well, you have to actually have, it wasn't like she was a swing vote and anything. Like Vinny, I'm thinking about the early stages of this game when people were, scrambling for votes. Who was in a position to swing votes one way or another? She was not. She was kind of whichever way the majority was going, she was voting. Vinny was the one, along with a few other people who were in the middle, dictating these votes. Vince and Zach, Vince and Lauren, Vince and Morgan. Those people were kind of swinging votes left and right, which way the power of the House was going dictated on whether they were voting. Ashley's votes never really mattered. In fact, one of the votes she literally changed because it literally didn't matter. She voted one way and then she said, "Oh wait, sorry, I'll vote the other way." Like she was like, "Wait, which way is the unanimous? Which way is the House voting? I need to vote where the House goes." So it was very floater-esque. And then in the second ladder of the stages of the game, she gets in the Judges Alliance and she doesn't really make any decisions in the Judges Alliance. I mean, that the competitions were all won by Morgan and Vince in the Judges Alliance. I mean, that's literally all it was. Will didn't win anything. She didn't win anything. And then obviously Rachel eliminated herself. So it wasn't like she really had the position to make a decision and stand by it. She didn't really have to make enemies because, like I said, if you don't win anything and you don't break someone's heart on a swing vote, it's not like she voted anybody out either. She was never the sole vote to evict until finale night where she voted out Morgan. But it's not like she voted out somebody at Final Four or voted out somebody at Final Five in a 1-1 split. You know,
Mike, you know how to make enemies into friends? By never having to do anything of any consequence throughout the entire season. By never having to make a meaningful decision. You could turn your enemies into friends.
She didn't put anybody up all season long. She won one veto, which was to save herself. So it's not like she had to do something with the veto. It's not like she had to use the veto on somebody or not use the veto and piss off 2 people on the block or 3 people on the block. So she never really did anything to be like, oh, I have to go to Ashley for information. I have to go to Ashley and see, what do you want to do with this veto? What do you want to do in your HOHs? I'm going to have to make a deal with Ashley. No one ever had to do that because she never was in position to win anything to make that decision, which is fine. You can obviously win this game without having to win a competition. That is evident. We've seen it before. Dr. Will did it in season 2. So it's not like a putrid game, but I feel like I left something on the plate. Like in a season where we had some comp piece here. I mean, Kiana was winning everything. Morgan and Vince were taking turns winning everything. Rachel, we know how awesome she is at competitions historically. Kind of struggled this season to win comps, but nonetheless, like we had real people on the season that could threaten to do something, and we're playing the game a little bit. I mean, most of the cast wasn't really playing the game, but
some of Kiana is historically bad as far as actually playing the game.
Yes, but he was a comp beast, and he got as far as he did because he won competitions, which is fine. Right. It's a total opposite game, by the way, of Ashley. So I just felt like I felt disappointed because I thought there was only really one person who I think deserved to win the season. After Kiana got evicted, when we got down to 4 people, and I said, okay, if Morgan doesn't win the season, I'm going to feel a little bit slighted because no one else here really deserves to even be here. Ava was drug along. Ashley was hiding behind Vince and Morgan, her words herself. And Morgan was like the puppy dog on the leash Vince was the puppy dog on the leash to Morgan. It felt like, even the juries felt like it. So I felt a little slighted the way that Morgan got evicted at Final 3. She got Vanessa'd, but she didn't get Vanessa'd by Steve. I mean, she did not. Ashley is not Steve.
No.
Steve had other alliances without Vanessa. Steve was working with Johnny Mac. Steve was working with the twins in Austin. So Steve was working with people, not just Vanessa. He didn't get drugged to Final 3 by Vanessa. Make no mistakes about it. They were working together, but they were still had side alliances, other people. They were both playing the game. Ashley, it felt like, was hiding behind 2 people who were making all the decisions. And then at the very end, she's like, oh, I get the final say now. I get to take out the person who was winning everything and calling all the shots for a month and a half now. And it felt a little bit like, okay, that's not really the ending I wanted. And I mentioned it to you last week on the podcast or 2 weeks ago. I figured if Morgan doesn't win the season, I'm going to feel like a little let down by the end game here of who actually won it. Either Vince won and he got dragged there like a goat and won, which I didn't want to see him win that way, or Ashley won and she did nothing for 90 days. So I was like, okay, this is not good.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to disparage her too much. I think her social positioning was pretty flawless throughout the entire game, where she could have been just this coaster that was viewed as expendable, and I think she was at a few points, but again, her relationships allowed her to kind of progress throughout that. There was a few times where Vinny thought it was time to cut her. He was talked out of it by Morgan, and that ultimately led to be his downfall. But to me, looking at Ashley, as far as like recent winners, I think she's on the lower end. I think she's with Jag for sure. I think she's above Jag because I think Jag's the worst maybe ever because of the unanimous eviction. I don't think you can possibly get worse than that. That's kind of ridiculous. I think for me, Ashley's around the Taylor sphere, where I thought Taylor was a good story and she had adversity, but I don't think Taylor had necessarily the path that Ashley had to take. I think Ashley did a lot more social maneuvering throughout that was allowing her to kind of get to where she needed to be. Whereas Taylor, it was a nice story, and I think at a point people were just rooting for her within the season. So if she even sniffed towards the end, she was winning, which is respectable. That is fine. But to me, they're not on the same sphere as, like, let's say a Chelsea, who I thought is one of the best modern winners in both Big Brother, Survivor, etc. Thus, she dominated her season the entire time. So I think, at least looking the last few years, Ashley's definitely in the lower mid tier, lower tier, around that range.
Yeah, I think that she's right in that. She's right above Jag, probably for me right below Taylor. I think I like Taylor's game a little bit more than Ashley's. Just because
close for sure.
I just think she had more influence on the game. I think overall she had more influence on the game. She's able to kind of string Monty along to take out the biggest threat that season, which was Michael. I think she navigated herself pretty well. She definitely got lucky in the pre-jury stage of the game where she was on the bottom and kind of looked at it as expendable. And Ashley, you got to give credit to Ashley for her relationship building, which kept her off the block ultimately. I think that Vince's biggest mistake, and I kept like banging my head across. I was like, you put her up week 1 because she was in the shower for 2 hours. You had HOH 3 more times and never put her up again. I don't understand it. It never made any sense to me. I mean, even at a chance in Final 5 to do it, he put up Ava and Keanu. I mean, he could have put up Ashley at Final 5. He could have put up Ashley instead of Catherine at Final 11 or whatever, or Final 10, I believe. He didn't do it then. He didn't do it at any point except for the first week of the season. And then never did it again. So credit to her for her relationship building, and I think really credit to Morgan for convincing him to not put up Ashley. Because I think once you put up somebody once, as an HOH, you say, okay, well, I've already heard that person once. I can just put him up again. You saw it with Lauren. Lauren put up basically her exact same nominations. It was Will, Keanu, and Kelly. Or not Kelly, Adrian the first time. And then once Adrian went home, it was Will, Keanu, and I think she put up Morgan as the third nominee for her second eviction. But she basically put up the first 2 people she put up in her first HOH, which was Will and Keanu.
Right.
So once you're in HOH and you put up people and they don't go home, you can just put them up again. Because you don't get to piss off more people in the house. So I felt like Vince nominating Ashley week 1. By the way, she was his target week 1. She won the veto, and then he had to put up Zay or Amy or whatever it was, and or Will, I forget who it was. But nonetheless, he put her up week 1 as his target, never once put her up again. Ultimately, I think that credit goes to Morgan for convincing him, because I think if Vince is a smart player, which I think he is, I think he would at least have considered. I think he would have at least considered putting up Ashley one more time than he did. He put her up once in the entire game.
Yeah.
So I think he was thinking about it at least, and he never once did it. So after that first HOH that he had. So ultimately, I think credit goes to Morgan for kind of stringing him along and basically dictating his HOHs for the most part, because he was putting up his own allies over Ashley, who never really once. I know she took him to Final 2, but she never really once had a Final 2 with Vince. Like her loyalty was with Will, Rachel, Morgan, and then primary or in secondary was Vince, because he was in the judges with her. But she never once was like going to Vince for like, actual game. She was in the alliance with him, obviously, but like personal wise, they never really had anything going. So he was putting up people that he personally liked, like Keanu. He was putting up people that he had a Final 2 with, like Lauren. I mean, his gameplay, I can go on for an hour about the way Vince played the game in latter part of the season or in the pre-jury. But ultimately, credit to Ashley for sitting next to a guy who made too many mistakes in the game.
Yeah, and real quick, just to wrap this up, I think the legacy of this season is mostly going to be out of the show. I think there's going to be a lot of updates around the Catherine Riley situation, the Vince, Kelsey, Morgan love triangle. Of course, Rachel's a fan favorite. They'll always want to catch up with her. Will, I think, really indoctrinated himself with the BB community. Keanu, of course, won the fan vote in a massive landslide, America's favorite player.
Unbelievable.
So I think this season will be remembered more for the characters and the people and the updates that will follow in the coming months.
Much
even
more than
like
the gameplay
super early boot, Mike, like Jimmy. Like he's a guy that has a following now and is popular. Even like Adrian, I know he's been doing a lot of lives with Zach. Yeah. So those guys are popular. And I know that's kind of a thing every season, but more so this year. I think the legacy of this show will be a lot of the fun characters it provided, and the season will be kind of misremembered in a few years.
Because the gameplay wasn't good. The characters
it was really bad.
Yeah. I mean, we can... I guess, well, maybe we won't segue right now, but I mean, we could talk about the cast and how Big Brother can be fixed, but it's,
Let's start it. Yeah, let's start it. So we want to talk about how to fix this franchise. And I think, Mike, the obvious thing to talk about off the top is cast. Because the cast, as I alluded to, a lot of recruits, and that's been a focus the last few years. And sometimes you'll get awesome recruits, and sometimes they have just simply no idea what they're doing. And I think the recruiting method, to an extent, if you have a few of these people that you want for either it's eye candy, whether it's someone that's gorgeous or it's someone that's chiseled, whatever that may be, whether it's someone that's incredibly intelligent, whether that's someone who was awesome at a different reality show, like an Amazing Race, like a Survivor. They love to keep it in the ecosystem, the challenge, etc. So those level of recruits. If they only mixed in a few of those, I'd be fine with it. But these modern seasons, it feels like it's 90% recruits, and that's where you lose me. It feels like someone like Vince on a different season, would he have done better? Probably not. He probably would have done worse, but that's actually a good thing. I don't want him to do better because I thought he was a subpar game player that thought he was great. Right. Those are the kind of people I want to see cut off earlier in the game. It's just one of these things where I don't know how to fix this problem, because we just talked about casting too many super duper fans. That can be a detriment as well with Survivor right now. So I think for Big Brother, maybe just trying to branch out to people that they don't have to listen to Taryn's live feed updates every day. They don't necessarily need to have watched every season of the show, but Christ, can we just get some people that have at least like 6 to 10 seasons under their belt that, you know, occasionally pop into some live feeds and engage in some discourse online and truly understand some semblance of the show? Because right now it's just so disheartening to watch these players attempt to play a game. It just feels like a vehicle for them to become a micro influencer after the show's over.
I was just going to get into that. Yeah. I mean, you hit on, I think every week we had a text thread that we were talking about. It's like every week it felt like the cast had no idea what they were doing from a strategic level. Up to even Kelly not really knowing the rules of the game. Riley, same thing. I think for the last 4 to 5 seasons, these cast members have largely been, I don't want to say this because I don't know what's going on in their head, but I don't think they really care about the money and winning the game. I think it's been more of, hey, we're going to cast people who maybe could be social media influencers after this. Like they're trying to put on this persona of, and you see it now because everyone's so over the top. You have to be basically over the top to get on the show anyways, but everyone, you know, has to be great in front of a camera and kind of social media influence their way through the game so that America likes them and they can build a career off of this, basically. And that's what I feel like the last 4 to 5 seasons have really been. It's been people that really don't care about winning the game necessarily, because we have not seen great gameplay the last few seasons outside of like Chelsea and a few other people. But we've been seeing people that, you know, are over the top. Like I'm thinking about Blue from Cerise season.
Oh, yeah.
The one that Jag won. I mean, Blue had no idea what was going on in the game, but she was, hey, kitty, kitty, purr. You know, I'm going to make a little whatever money on the side here after this season's over because people are going to like me. So it's a lot of people who just kind of have this influencer mindset. And it doesn't make for great gameplay. I mean, I'm by and large here for the gameplay and the cast members, and I'm interesting people. Like I want to see interesting people who are authentic, true people. Ava on this season was kind of the opposite of that. Very, very for the camera, very for, you know, I want to win America's favorite player. I want to be very goofy, over the top. Even in her exit interview with Julie, making a bunch of faces. I'm like, is this person real? And there's a few people on every cast, on every season. I'm just like, do we need to cast them? We talk about with Survivor, but they cast like all super fans. We got to have some balance here with the casting. I mean, there's got to be a few casual Big Brother fans, and then there's got to be a few casual people who know what they're talking about, and there's got to be a few people who don't really. There's going to be a few recruits. I'm totally fine with recruits, as you mentioned. Sometimes they make the best players. Some recruits do really well, but you can't just be completely inept at the game, and then also you can't go into the game not wanting to win the $1 million or the $750 million. You have to also want to win the game. You can't just be like, oh, I'm here for a showmance, or I'm here for even though showmances are fine, it's good drama, but you can't just be like, hey, I'm just here to be famous. You know, I'm here to be good in front of a camera and win over America. That's not really what a lot of people want to see. I mean, we've seen they cast, and you mentioned sometimes they just cast gorgeous people, eye candy. That's totally fine. You need that in every season. Because they also cast stereotypes. I mean, if you watch Big Brother over the seasons, you'll find people that almost look identical to the people we've cast before. Like they've cast people. I'm like, oh, they've cast this exact person before, from personality to looks to. I'm like, they always have this, you know, jock, 6-foot athlete, former baseball player. They always cast those guys. They always cast a Southern girl. You know, they always cast these the quirky. You know, they always do the exact same. They're a big stereotype show. That being said, it's a lot of nowadays. It's a lot of influencer stuff. Like I'm thinking about Big Brother 14 when Ian Terry got cast. There was no like thought of him being an influencer. He wanted to win the money. You know, it was he wanted to win the game. It was, you know, I mean, Frank from that season. It was just like he's fighting to win the game. Like, there was no, and then they get drama from that because it's just all strangers playing a game to win $750,000, or at that time $500,000. Now it just doesn't feel like it's like that. It feels like it's a bunch of random people who are trying to become social media famous and don't really know what they're doing to play the game wise. And it was weird to plop Rachel in a season with this kind of modern day of thinking. Maybe if Rachel was casted, 10 years ago, which she was, those seasons were really good. They were really good television. Now she's cast with a bunch of like new age hipsters, and it's like, I don't know what the heck's going on here. And it didn't really work. So I enjoyed the season, but you got to fix it going forward because this doesn't work.
I enjoyed it to an extent, but it feels like we're moving the goalpost for what we enjoy because, to be honest, it's not even close to the old seasons quality-wise. It's this new kind of barometer that we're judging it on. But there's something interesting about this. So I'm watching Big Brother 10. We were talking about this, so I want to make another comparison to that in a little bit. That's widely regarded as one of the best seasons of the show by far.
Yep.
And that season took place, I believe, in 2008. So almost 20 years at this point. That's how old that season is. That's, of course, Dan in Memphis and Jerry and Libra and Jesse, Mr. Spectacular.
Ollie, you off the bat?
Yeah, there's so many good characters in that season. And there are some stereotypes. Jesse, of course, fits kind of the prototypical jock, and Jerry's kind of the bitter old man, and Rennie's kind of the fun old woman. There's a lot of stereotypes as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
But at least they are a little bit different. Now, I think you mentioned it. You kind of just ran down the last 10 casts. They really go back to the same wells over and over again. Whereas with Big Brother 10, and I think this was so refreshing watching this because I watched it years ago. I was younger. I just wanted to see it with more adult eyes and see what the hype was about because I remembered it being good, but not as good as it is on a rewatch here.
Right.
It's just so refreshing to see everyone so committed to winning the game. And you brought this up, and it sounds almost silly because I think these people do want to win now. I'm not going to say they don't, but it's not their priority. And I think every single time with these confessionals in Big Brother 10 after something happened, someone usually brought it back to winning the game and winning the money and changing their lives, or how they're not going to win the money now because they're getting backstabbed, whatever it may be. So I just think it's so clear, especially if you use those old seasons as kind of a guide. There's just so much more of a passion to win the game and be Big Brother famous, not necessarily social media famous. And again, it comes with the climate we live in. It comes with the modern world, with social media being so impactful. Huge. In 2008, what was being famous on MySpace even mean? Or Facebook? What did that even mean? It didn't really mean anything. Where now, at least if you're famous on Instagram or something, you can monetize yourself. You can kind of coast off your NIL, if you will, your name, image, and likeness for years and years to come. You can go on these other shows and you can go to these fan conventions and you can kind of be famous within this own realm, where back then there was some of that for sure, but not to the same extent. So that's part of it. But at the same time, I'm sure there's people out there that no matter what would be committed to winning the prize. And I think that philosophy just needs to be shifted in the right direction. And that comes with a better cast, a cast that understands that they have to win no matter what. They have a desire to win. And I'm not talking about the Survivor way where, again, your girlfriend's going to leave you, or your great-grandmother has cancer, or whatever it may be, the things we were talking about last episode. It just means that these people want to win because they are competitive people and they want to win. It can be as simple as that. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, they can be privileged in their own way, but as long as they're, number one priority is winning the game, which everyone was 10 years ago. In your case, 2008, that Big Brother 10, everyone was committed to winning the game. I mean, even Big Brother 12, our first rendition of Rachel Riley, it's a lot of like real backstabbing. I mean, there's actual relationships that are getting and again, the confessionals were not scripted back then. So now you got scripted confessionals, so the drama is kind of manufactured. The confessionals are all manufactured. No one's really speaking their mind about that. So we don't really get these actual heated drama moments anymore. We really haven't ever since BB19 when Josh is waking people up with pots and pans. So, I mean, we've kind of got away with the reality TV, cutthroat, cold-blooded way of playing, which again, it's a different climate we live in. Of course, that's the world we live in now. And that's fine. But it just felt like these recent seasons nowadays, it's not really, priority is not necessarily winning the game. Of course, everyone wants to win the game, but it's, you got your people who are they're here for the ride. They don't really want to leave. They don't want their summer to be over this quickly. And they're kind of, crying their way through it, but it's not like, hey, this would mean so much to me because, and you don't see gameplay that way. You see it's a different way of playing the game nowadays, which is not very cutthroat. It's not very strategic. I mean, these last few seasons haven't really been strategic. I mean, again, Chelsea is a kind of put a tip in the cap there because the Jag season was just him winning competitions and dragging goats at the end. But these last few seasons have not been that strategic from that sense of the scale. But again, how do you fix this season? Or how do you fix this show? they're going to be fine doing this exact same thing they do every year because they have just kind of recycled the exact same cast for like the last 5 years. Like if we're being real, we can go back like the last 5 years and be like, okay, this is the stereotype they're going with again. Here's this person. I can tell you right now without even seeing a confessional from them how they're going to be perceived, what they're going to be compared to, and how they're probably going to play the game. So it's very by and large the same thing. It's a lot of the same, and we talk about Survivor, which is a lot of the same for different reasons. But Survivor keeps recycling the exact same things with the exact same twists, which we'll get to here with Big Brother. The twists are ridiculous nowadays. Actually, matter of fact, I'll hit on that right now because you're watching Big Brother 10 right now, right? So you haven't finished the show.
Yeah. I'm almost done. I'm at the final 4, and obviously I know what happens. I'm a historian of the show, but again, I just wanted to rewatch it. Yeah, so obviously Big Brother 10, not a lot going on in the twist sphere.
No, that's what I'm saying. So in by and large, what people consider the best seasons of Big Brother, I can hit on a few other ones too. The twists happen early in the season, expect the unexpected, woohoo, big deal there, and then in the latter stage of the game, they kind of back off and let the players dictate the game. You know, mostly old Big Brother said, okay, we're not gonna inconvene here. We're not gonna throw ourselves in here in the final 5 and do some weird twist that ruins somebody's game. We're not gonna do that. Mostly, like there was bad twists like America's Player and BB8 with Eric.
Who
made an appearance there, and he kind of dictated the season with Dick and Danielle. But some of those early seasons were just the players playing the game. They didn't really come in through until, the early stages of, okay, that's fine. Twists are fine for like the first 5 evictions. If you want to make a twist every week, whatever. I know BB15 was the first year they had 3 nominees, which added another layer to the game. That's fine. But of course, you don't want that to happen when there's 9 people or less, which unfortunately what we got this year. They kept the 3 nominees until like the final 5 or until the final 6. It was ridiculous.
Awful.
So you don't want to have twists go on too long or they're no longer twists at that point. They're not even like it's just something you got to play with. And last year, the AI Arena became the first thing that they did, and now it was the Blockbuster. They changed the name to the Blockbuster, but last year was the introduction to the AI Arena, which we didn't need at all, really. And then this year, we really didn't need it. Certainly not past final 11. Like we maybe the first 4 evictions, fine, whatever. If you want to save yourself on an AI Arena, Blockbuster, whatever. But we don't need these evictions. We don't need these Blockbusters to go out until final 6, final 7. That is not what anyone needs. We don't need twists lasting 9 weeks. That is not what anybody in Big Brother ever asked for. That's never what it used to be. We never had twists that last that long. There was, again, I remember in Big Brother 12, the Pandora's Box, you had the Saboteur. Those were a couple weeks. It was to throw a wrench in the game. Yeah. The season with the coaches, with Janelle, Dan, Brittany, and Boogie. Like that's a big twist. You had the coaches challenges. That was like the first 5 evictions where you had that. And then they came in the game, and then it's like, okay, at that point they're all players and have at it. Whoever wins wins. They don't actually at that point. Big Brother did not add any twists at the end of the game to kind of like say, hey, we're gonna throw a wrench in the whole thing. They had a second veto in there, but like they didn't really change the game with these random twists that just pop up out of nowhere with this month of mayhem thing. I'm thinking about last season. They had a janky thing where they just outside the whole week. It's like, why do we need that? Why do we need that? And then I think 2 seasons ago when Jag won, or no, it was 3 seasons ago when Taylor won. They had 2 different eviction.
Split house. Yeah.
The split house. So all week long, you can't talk to another side of the house. Like, what are we doing? I thought this was a social game. I thought this was a strategic game. You can't even talk to another part of the house. So you're cutting off. It was like 6 people here, 6 people there, and you get 2 evictions, and you don't know who goes home because you're not talking to anybody on the other side of the house. Like one group is outside, one group is inside. I'm like, why do we need to do that? Whose idea was that? So these ideas they keep coming up with each season. The twists somehow keep getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't think it's ever going to get worse than just a random puzzle that you get eliminated in final 9. We've obviously hated the day 1 eliminations with Glenn and whatever, but they keep one-upping the bad twists, and I think that also plays into part where it's like, okay, the cast probably sucks, the gameplay probably sucks, and then the twists don't make it much easier, don't make it much better either, because they keep adding these bad twists that kind of ruin the game for a lot of people's perspective.
Yeah, and I want to get to like the nooks and crannies of the game here as far as just the format is concerned. So we'll just use Big Brother 10 because we've talked about it a few times here. So Big Brother 10 was 71 days and it had 13 cast members. So for comparison, Big Brother 27, what we just finished watching, 17 cast members, 83 days. So 4 extra cast members across basically 2 more weeks. This season had effectively a double eviction and a double and a half eviction if you count the fact there were 3 people gone in 1 week with Rachel's twist. if you count the day before and a few days after. So that's basically 3 in 1 week, and then of course double eviction, the 2 in the same night. So there was some like weird ways to get around the extra booked up cast, if you will. But in my opinion, it was just like there's just too many people. And I think they knew that right off the top, and they supplemented it again with the 3 nominations thing, which I've done in past years. I remember there was a season, the Battle of the Block, that era. I think that was 2 seasons actually, where 4 people were getting nominated a week. That was just outrageous.
That was 16 and 17, yeah.
Yeah, like what happened to just 2 people getting nominated? I think that makes those social dynamics early in particular much more impactful. And I think you saw it this year. It was just hard for any alliances or anything to really get done because 3 people are getting nominated, and that's just too many, especially if someone comes down, then you're nominating 4 people a week. Like, how are you supposed to navigate that? There's a difference between trying to kind of get something more supplemented and then just really just extending the season for no reason. So what do you think about that?
Okay, yeah. I mean, it would make me not want to win HOH for the first part of the game. I think we talked about how, you nominate at least 3 people a week, probably 4, because most likely the veto is going to get used. There's 3 nominees on the block. There's 3 people competing for a veto. So I would not want to win HOH for the first part of the game. I think it really hinders your chances to win the game. Obviously, Vince won too many HOHs. In a season where you have to nominate 4 people a week, that's probably just too many. I mean, in the other seasons where you have to nominate 2 people each, and then the HOH might get dethroned if they win the Battle of the Block challenge. It's just like a lot of these goofy twists that happen, post Big Brother 10. If we're going to keep that timeline going here. Like post Big Brother 10, we had a lot of goofy twists that didn't really make sense for Endgame. As far as Endgame's concerned, and I think we all agree that this blockbuster thing, I didn't like its inception last season. I certainly don't like its inception. I don't like its return this season, and I don't like that it had to go to Final 7. I don't think we needed a blockbuster at all past the first few weeks. It's fine the first couple weeks, I guess, but even then, I think we could use a couple double evictions. I think ultimately, I made this point earlier. The end game is boring, and they know that. I think they know the end game is boring. So of course they crammed everything in. They crammed everything into like the last 11 days. They evicted. They had 7 people left with a week and a half to go until finale night, and they had to cram in 4 evictions in like a week. But ultimately the pre-jury stuff was just so boring. I mean, everyone talking about, hey, we gotta get the jury. Well, it took so long to get the jury because there was 17 people, and then jury didn't start till 9 people. So we got 8 evictions before we even got the jury. And we had no double evictions at that point. It was the first 8 weeks, there was not a single double eviction. So it took a long time to get there. The twists were stupid. The blockbusters were not that entertaining, if we're being honest with ourselves. It was the same people up every week. It was everyone played a scared game. So ultimately, I don't like these new twists because I don't think it actually helps out the gameplay. I think the gameplay, if it just go back to 2 nominees, you nominate a week, I think you can play a little bit differently. I think honestly, a lot of people's games were hindered because of these twists. Like, I don't think Vince played the game he wanted to play necessarily because of this. I don't think the players knew that there would be another blockbuster. If you have to nominate 3 people and they're going to compete to play and probably battle off the block again. Lauren, same thing. Like these are actual people who watch the game a lot, and I think they know that twists are coming. I mean, you have to expect the unexpected, obviously, but to have the exact same twist 2 seasons in a row, I mean, really, guys, another blockbuster. I mean, I keep harping on blockbusters, but it's just like it's not necessary for the game. I mean, old Big Brother is you nominate 2 people, you have a chance to save yourself in the veto. If your social game is good, you won't touch the block and you won't get backdoored. Now you have 3 chances to save yourself. You have the HOH to save yourself, you have the veto to save yourself, and you have the blockbuster to save yourself. Why do you need 3 chances to save yourself? I don't understand it. So I
don't either. And I think it's as simple as what happened to just, again, 2 people being nominated and having this threat of a backdoor and having to navigate the threat of a backdoor. Because I think I'm just going to pick out the 2 favorites of the season, Rachel and Keanu. The reason why they lasted so long is because, again, Keanu was winning all these blockbusters, so he wasn't being able to be backdoored. So he just had ample chances to save himself, and at some point he was just able to eventually get himself down. And then as far as Rachel, they just didn't want to hear her. They didn't want to hear her influence if they put her on the block. And especially if she was in a blockbuster, she would have had a decent chance to win any of these. So they didn't want to deal with her wrath, so they never really made the move to put her up because, again, they just didn't want to listen to it. And that passive gameplay is because of the blockbuster. And again, we've seen it for we've seen it for 2 seasons now. In when you take bad game players and you take a bad format and a bad twist, what do you expect?
Right.
What do you think's going to happen? So I think just from that, again, there can be the occasional twist. I think I'm a Pandora's Box guy. I think that's fun because at least you get an option, even though there's been past examples of maybe there wasn't really an option. Production maybe
made them do it,
stepping a toe in there, But regardless, at least there's the perception of an option. So I like stuff like that. Usually, it wasn't too grossly overpowered at that point. Sometimes it was just really additive to the game at a crucial juncture.
Yeah.
So again, it's just one of these things where if you want a real social experiment with competition and you want to blend that with having great characters, why would you dilute every single aspect of it? If competitions mean less because there's more of it, if strategy means less because there's really no way to strategize if you're putting up 3-4 people a week, it just doesn't really make any sense. And that to me is the biggest problem with the show right now. And yes, I understand the ratings did well, and part of that obviously is the Rachel boost, but some of that is probably just also seeing it online and stuff. The season really spread like wildfire. All of the ratings increase isn't just Rachel, guys. Clearly there's other factors involved. So I think the show's in a good place, but it needs reworking if it wants to continuously stay in this good place for years and years afterwards. And I think one of the biggest issues is this calendar at this point, the seasonal shift. The season is too long. It's tough to sit through for 3 months. It's tough to give that kind of time to anything, particularly a show of this nature that's 24/7. It needs to start at the middle or end of June and end at the end of August. This is a summer show that has to exist in the summer, and it used to, because as we talked about last week, I think we might have been off the air, but I remember growing up as a kid, and I knew Big Brother was starting when I was getting out of school. I'm from the Northeast. We go a little bit later because of snow days and whatnot. That's the correlation I was able to make. And now it's just kind of thrown in the middle of July. It lasts till September. There's too many premieres of new shows on network television because the beginning of September, that's when you have these new shows premiere or come back or whatever. The sports calendar is way too crowded. You have college football, you have the NFL starting up, which is a massive point. And then also you have the MLB playoffs and basketball right around the corner. There's just simply too much going on, and Big Brother simply can't exist. And sure, some of the fans don't necessarily intersect. Not all of these people are diehard sports and Big Brother fans like us, and we can both acknowledge that. But at the same time, this is a summer show that builds itself as a summer show. It has to exist in the summer.
Yeah, it's a CBS show, and by the way, you mentioned college football and NFL, but by the way, those both networks are both
Paramount, yes,
they take precedent as well. So if you want to really compete with the football world, which is NFL and college football, you're a CBS show. So you want to be in the summer where nothing's going on. It's just baseball. There's no affiliation from CBS with baseball, so you can have that entire thing. And it used to start in June. And by the way, I think we mentioned this as well during one of the episodes. I forget which one it was, but there's a lot of filler episodes and there's a lot of 90-minute episodes now. So they used to do Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, 1 hour eviction. Sunday, I believe, was the only time they did 90-minute episodes. And I think Wednesday was the 1 hour episode, 1 hour veto. Or maybe I had those flipped, but they only had one. I think it was 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour. It used to be just 1 hour each. Now they have these 90-minute Sunday episodes, which we don't need. I believe they also have 90-minute Wednesday episodes now. And then the only 1 hour is Thursday, the eviction, where there's so much going on.
The most important one, where they never do the HOH afterwards anymore?
They never do the HOH afterwards anymore now because they want to make this blockbuster thing, basically the new HOH thing, and then they have this like scramble vote thing, which if you really want to have a 90-minute episode, that's the 90-minute episode to have, because there should be more than 5 seconds to be like whispering, hey, keep this person, keep this person. There's no scrambling in rooms anymore. So if you want to actually scramble for votes, if you want to do the blockbuster thing and have people announce, hey, Keanu is off the block, you now have to pick between these two idiots, then maybe give them more than 5 seconds to be like, for Rachel to whisper in somebody's ears who to vote for, because now we get a bunch of mess in a 1 hour, live show. But we have 2 hour Sunday episodes and an hour and a half Wednesday episodes. It's just a lot of filler. We don't really need it. It's already a long season. We start late anyways. It's 90 days or whatever it is. We don't need this many. We don't need 90-minute episodes. We don't need, especially with the lack of gameplay. Do we really need 90-minute episodes with this kind of gameplay?
No,
all we're doing is getting more challenges. That's all we're doing.
Someone needs to understand in production that because of the blockbuster, which they think is this ratings boost, and maybe the data shows that, but here's the problem. If you just had less competitions, get rid of the blockbuster, you can bring back like the slop comps. Like, people liked those. You can bring back that if you want an extra competition each week.
They used to do luxury comps as well, but that was whatever.
Yeah, and they don't do any of that anymore, really. So it's just one of these things where if you get rid of the blockbuster, you'll get better gameplay. Those episodes will be more entertaining, and then those 90 minutes can be filled properly. Whereas now, because of the blockbuster, you get that short boost, but you kind of dilute the rest of the week. It's just a total problem all around. It's fundamentally just inept. And again, the season is too long. Not only does it need to start in the middle of end of June and end at the end of August, beginning of September, that first week, whatever, it just needs to be less time. This show should not go beyond, I'd say, the 70-day mark, 70, 75 days. That is plenty fine. We don't need 17 contestants because that just, at the end of the day, is more people that aren't going to make an impact. You can do, I don't know, 14. You can do 13, whatever it is. Yeah.
With a 7-person jury. So you get jury at 9. So you get 5 people voted out before jury. That's fine. We do not need, by the way, there was 8 people voted out pre-jury. So when they brought them back for the reunion, we saw 8 people pre-jury. We've never seen it before. That's never happened. They never done 17 people, and they never done actually the 7-person jury. They haven't done it in a long time. That used to be an old school thing. The 7-person jury, we usually have 9 people in the jury. They usually start jury at 11, at top 11, because I know Dave Vaughn was a first juror a couple times. But it feels like we're dunking on the show right now, which we are, because there's a lot of things to fix. I mean, there's a lot of things to fix with the show. It has to start earlier. There's no reason for it to start in mid-July, where summer's basically at this point kind of on the back hip. There's a lot of issues. I think the casting is the number one issue. If you ask me right now, I think the casting is the big issue here. Twists, they need to stop intervening, because I think it ultimately trickles down to the cast members. Like they may not already be good gamers anyways, and now you're just hindering their ability to game. Like if you put Dan Giesling in this era of Big Brother, how would he be able to work his magic with, you nominating 4 people a week? Can he kind of?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, could he even backdoor his number one target in like a Frank if he knows Frank is competing in an AI arena or a blockbuster? He can't even really do that. So you can't even get your number one target. Like I know Vince so many weeks was like, I need to get out this person. Well, it's like, don't put them up then, because you're giving them a chance to take themselves off with the veto, and you're going to give them a chance to get themselves off on a blockbuster. So these people that nominate their targets, you can't even nominate your targets anymore. There's no real path to actually playing legit gameplay. You basically have to nominate 3 pawns and hope that you can backdoor somebody where you really can't. So the twists are bad. The cast is really bad. Hopefully they can figure it out, but I think the show knows that they're going to be doing fine ratings wise, so they can just keep recycling these exact same casts over and over again.
Yeah, and I think the last 2 points I want to make out here, and these are much more unrealistic, but I think they need to be tweaked for the sustainability of the show to get better people casted. Because I know, look, I've always wanted to go on a Big Brother Survivor. I've watched it since I was a little kid. Obviously, when you have that connection with something, eventually you want to go on. In the last few years, I thought about it. I don't really want to go on Big Brother because it's far too long and it's far too boring. Yeah. The actual process of Big Brother, and I think this has to do with the kind of lack of interesting gameplay, especially in the end game the last few seasons with these extended seasons, is because these people get so burned out. And I think even Big Brother 10, it's kind of a sprint to the finish. So even though it's not that much shorter, again, 2 weeks is a decent amount of time, but still, it's not like that's a crazy change or anything. At least when you get to day 50, 60, you're not feeling as burned out as you would in a, again, 83-day season.
Yeah, it's like I saw 40 more days.
Yeah. Right. So those days are meaningful, especially in the middle, because when the show's ending, like they have a concept anyway, especially if you have a double eviction or two. So you have a concept of when it's going to end. So it's just one of these things where if you have the wherewithal of, okay, I'm at 60 of 71. I know I only have 11 days left. Whereas now, if you're at 60 of 83, you're like, oh my God, we still have 3 more weeks. Are you kidding me? It's just a tough sell. So I think my thing would be, you have to allow some time. It can be controlled. I don't really care. You need some time to be able to watch shows, movies, read a book, whatever. I think you have to include media in some form or fashion. You can have the HOH perk of getting the music if you want, but you need some other form of media, some more games. I know there was a season, I don't remember which, I don't know if it was All Stars 1 or one of the seasons right before it. There was like a basketball hoop or something. They were playing basketball a lot. Yeah. You just need some sort of like extra games. It can be more board games. It has to be more interesting for these people, so that way they are not hating their experience in the house. I think this season, more than anything, repetition. Vinny and Morgan had the same conversations, over and over and over again. It was so awful to watch. Yeah. It was a terrible viewing experience. They need some time to just take their mind off the game for a little bit. I understand this is a social experiment. You want them at all times to be focused on the game. And I think they still would be. But they can at least play Monopoly. They can play cards. They can do something. And it would make it more interesting. I thought the thing with the M&Ms that Mickey and Morgan were doing were awesome. Yeah. I know that's an old school thing. People have done that all the time, but Skittles, I still like that.
Yeah, Skittles and BB.
Yes, Skittles. I know there was a point someone was doing like a different type of candy. It wasn't just M&Ms and Skittles. There was something else. It was like gumdrops or something weird. Cough drops, excuse me. I think it was that. So there's ways to do it. And it's just, you need these people in better spirits, and you need them to be able to understand that this is a grind, but it's also fun, because I think too many times the last few years, there gets to a point where way too many people just simply aren't enjoying themselves. And look, it's tough, and it would be kind of boring if there wasn't some paranoia and there was just everyone was purely happy, sure. But you need some sort of outlet at the end of the day, so these people, A, aren't losing their minds for real, and B, they just aren't being repetitive, because that's so boring, and it just makes for worse TV. And again, that will dilute the feeds a little bit. I'm okay with that. That's totally fine with me.
Yeah, it used to be the feeds were like, after the veto meeting on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday were like no game talk. I mean, people campaign for votes, but you'd actually just, you take your mind off the game. Okay, it's like, okay, Sunday we got veto, Saturday nominations, whatever, or I believe it was Friday nominations, Saturday veto, Sunday or Monday veto meeting. And it's like, okay, we have Tuesday and Wednesday to just talk about personal. I remember watching the feeds in these old seasons where they, after the veto meeting was done, no one really talked game. I mean, it was mostly just, there was some strategizing, but it was mostly just actual bonding with people in the house, getting to know people and that strategy. It was like a time off from the game. They had board games. They had, I believe in Fessy season, when Big Brother 20, they had like a rock climbing thing that they were doing. Like people were actually like doing things, like actual like physical activities. There's not really any of that. It's just a lot of people just laying around. I mean, I think Ava like never gets out of her bed. I mean, it's just like a lot of downtime. There's too much downtime for a season that's going to go for 90 days. We don't need that much downtime. It's as simple as that. And if you shorten the season, you can also shorten the cast. Like 14 people.
Yes.
You can now get in more gameplay. You don't need the blockbuster. You can only do 2 nominees. You get in, if you want to do a 90-minute episode, you get 90 minutes of actual gameplay and not actual like, ridiculous. We have to meet all 17 people. We have to give them all equal airtime. We have to make sure that they all are, getting their scripted diary room confessionals and, who's starting random beef. Like we don't really need that. If you shorten the season and shorten it to 14 people, then you can kind of accelerate the game. Because people know if there's 70 days instead of 90 days, and we have to hit the ground running then. As far as like strategic wise, like, you can't just float to final 11 and okay, now I'll start playing, because there's still 50 days left in the game. Like you can't really do that. So if you shorten the season, maybe give us 14, 15 people in the cast. I think ultimately those seasons were always the best anyways, but maybe I'm a little bit biased. But I think ultimately that's what you need to do to at least not fix it fully, because I don't think it'll ever get fully fixed. We're living in a different time. So it's as simple as that. But at least give it like a little bit of a tweak that maybe can make it a little bit more old school, a little bit more modern in the same time.
Because I think it needs to, I think particularly the casting, you need to kind of entice people to want to go on the show. And who wants to go on the show in this current format? Again, these influencers can convince themselves of the benefits afterwards, but the average, even fan, it's just asking so much.
If I was to tell you, hey, you have a 1 in 14 shot of winning $750,000, or if I told you, hey, you have a 1 in 17 shot of winning $750,000. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you go on the show, if you win HOH, you have to nominate probably 4 people. Like, what would you tell me if I told you can go on the show? You would entice them if it's 14 people, and if it's 70 days and not 90. I'd be like, hey, you're gonna.
Yeah. By the way, the 1 out of 17, you can only occasionally listen to music. You can play chess, you can play pool, and you can work out. That's it. You can't even really work out with a lot of other people because the rooms are designed so you can't.
You can't. Yeah.
So how enjoyable is that? It's just not.
Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, it's like, again, if I told you only had to go on for 2 months instead of 3 months, you'd probably be like, oh yeah, I'd rather go on for 2 months. I don't want to be in there locked in the house for 3 months, not doing anything, and I probably don't have a chance to win the game. Like that.
At least we have games, and at least we can watch a weekly movie, whatever it may be. Sure. At least
they used to watch movies. Yeah, they used to have like occasionally, like maybe like once every 2 months, but whatever.
Yeah, at least there's some enjoyment. And real quick, before we end this here, the making the jury thing is so controversial. I remember we talked about this just ourselves a few months ago, where they were saying jury's a checkpoint, and Rachel in particular was like, jury's not a checkpoint for me. If you're just going to do that to me, you might as well vote me out now so I can at least be with my family instead of being sequestered in a jury house. And I think, look, the jury doesn't have the same rules as the regular house guests. They have more activities. I know sometimes they're able to like paint and whatever, pottery, little activities. And I know they are allowed to watch like movies and shows and whatnot. And even Ian Terry, I think he got in trouble for this, but he was trying to watch the news and he had a telescope. They had a telescope at the jury house, and he was like looking into the neighbors' windows, trying to see like what was on CNN and stuff like that. So that was fun as well. But it's just, if you're gonna make the jury that sequestered, at least allow them to like watch the news, watch sports. At least allow that, because again, like, how are they going to be influenced from what's going on? MLB games are not going to be talking about Vincent Morgan. No. Like, this is so ridiculous that the news is going to be talking about Big Brother unless something drastic happens. Even online, like the Riley thing was a big deal.
Yeah.
To an average person, that's like, okay, like they're adults. They figure it out on their own. It wasn't really a big deal.
Yeah.
It was such a small sector of the fan base if you really think about it. So it's just, if you're going to make a jury, I'm okay with a 5-person jury, but if you want to stick with 7, that's totally fine with me.
Yeah.
But you have to allow them more freedom so they're not miserable. And if they're not allowed to talk to their family, fine, but at least let them be like normal people. Let them like go out once in a while to like a restaurant or something, whatever it may be. And they can monitor it. Like, producers can be there to ensure that people aren't coming up to them, spoiling stuff about the game, whatever. They can figure things out. And there is risk of contamination there. But even if you just like, I don't know, get takeout from a local restaurant, or if you go to a show, whatever it may be, as long as you are able to pre-plan, there's ways around these things. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it's just make the show more modern for these modern problems that will de-influence people to want to go on the show, because we need better people on the show. At the end of the day, we can talk about the length of the season, the twist, whatever. At the end of the day, we just need better people on the show. You have not just as far as character-wise, but actually care about Big Brother.
Yeah, you have to entice them to come on the show. And I think Rachel's point, to cap it off here, I think Rachel's point of like, hey, jury's on a checkpoint. I think with her season, she just wanted to make jury with her husband, her future husband. So, going right before jury, I think people, they hate that feeling because they don't actually get to really talk to the rest of the cast until after the season ends. Like, they're not like, if you go in jury, you're seeing the next person after the next person walk out of the house. You're still in the game, it feels like, to you. And they've always had like jury battle back sometimes. I think people also think maybe I'm still in the game. So there's like that kind of aspect to it, and you still dictate who wins the game. Like, you have a vote in a 7-person jury that might actually matter. So you're still kind of a part of the game. But it's not like a checkpoint by any stretch of the imagination. Like, you made the jury, okay, cool, whatever. It's not like a big deal. It's not like it's like, again, Rachel's won the game before, so I don't know if I don't know what the rest of the cast was like. Oh, we gotta make a jury. We gotta make the jury. How about just win the game? It's not that like, it's very strange how people are like, we gotta make the jury. I don't really understand that checkpoint aspect of things. No one ever used to talk like that. I don't think anyone ever said, hey, get me the jury, please. No one ever used to speak like that.
So because why would you? It's
they wanted to win the game. We talked about this a million times. They wanted to win the game. There was people that actually came on the show to win the $500,000.
It should be not wanting to be the first person eliminated and then winning the game. That should be your two priorities. I understand that you don't want to be the first boot. That's fine. But after that, it's winning the game. That's it. That's all it is.
Hey, get me the jury, please, so I don't go home to my unemployed family.
And then if you're in the final 3, you could say, well, I at least want to be in the final 2 chairs, so I have a shot to win. And worst case scenario, I finish second, get $75K. That's a decent day at the office. But yeah, there has to be, again,
just cast people who care about winning the game. Priority.
Yes, that has to be a priority. And look, are these things going to be fixed? I think some of them will. I think these are popular issues that people are talking about right now.
Yeah,
and the production team led by Allison Gardner, they're under a lot of scrutiny, and the ratings show that they're doing a decent job. But I think throughout all the spheres, whether it's people on Twitter, I know there's a lot of like Facebook groups and whatnot. There's a TikTok side that seemingly has a beef with the Twitter side that I've been seeing that kind of circulate. And then there's some people that don't even really talk about it online, that are diehard fans that, have forums, or they just talk about it in their real life. So there's so many different parts of this fan base. And I think all understand this show needs to do better, because right now it's just not in a sustainable enough place for this to last another 13, 23 seasons if they want to match Survivor and get to 50. So
real quick, I want to make, because this has nothing to do with Big Brother, or the actual format of the game. I want to make it a note before we sign off here that I have to say, I hate the people that say you don't watch the live feed, so you don't know what's going on. I can't stand the narrative of when people criticize Ashley's game, the number one comment the number one reply to that is, hey, you don't watch the live feeds, you don't know what she's doing. First of all, I do watch the live feed, so I do know what she's doing. But even if you don't watch the live feeds, which is totally fine. I used to not watch them and still know information about the show. So even if you don't watch the live feeds and you don't know what's going on really on a daily, hour-to-hour basis, Ashley still did not make any single move prior to finale night to where you can justify saying, hey, just watch the live feeds. She's playing the game. You ultimately have to have some kind of staying power in the game, not just, hey, she was fun to watch on live feeds and she was strategizing. That is not Big Brother. Everyone should be doing that anyways. But when the actual cookie, when the cookie crumbles, what are you doing on a live eviction on a Thursday? What are you doing on a Wednesday? Like, what are you doing on those? Because that's what the audience is watching, but also the jury. It's not just, hey, this person was good on the live feeds, because not everyone's watching the live feeds. The people in the house aren't watching the live feeds. So how would Will know what Ashley's doing in the other room? He wouldn't. So you have to have some staying power in the game. So again, the live feed watchers who get all the camera angles in every single room and they know what's going on, that's fine. You're not playing the game, okay? People in the house are playing the game. And they're not watching live feeds. So you can't be like, oh, you didn't know what she was doing the entire time. She was playing on live feeds. You don't watch the live feeds. You don't know what's happening. The players aren't watching the live feeds, and yet they're voting on a winner. So again, it confuses me. It irritates me when people say that, because it's like a justification for her winning the game. It's like she was playing in the live feeds. Like, she didn't win anything. She didn't have to make any huge decisions. I'm not going to go back to the other point, but like, she didn't have to do anything like that. And I'm not trying to harp on how bad her game was, because I think she actually played a really good game from a social standpoint, but it wasn't a winning game. I don't think we can. It's not like I'm not making like a declarative statement by saying she did not play a winning game. That's not like that's like a baseline take. Like, that's not.
It's a winning game for 2025 in this iteration of Big Brother. The show that we like, that we grew up with, it is not a winning game. No.
Of course, that's my main point there. So like, people again are crowning her like the Dan Giesling of the show. Like, please stop it, because she was like strategizing on the live feeds. like you guys were watching the live feeds in 2008, watching what Dan Giesling was doing. No, we were watching the show and we saw what Dan Giesling was doing. Like, come on, guys. Ultimately, it is still a TV show. I know there's live feeds, of course, they're getting watched 24/7. But I just want to make that point of like, hey.
And even then, and I know it's not as much now because I know some of them are scripted, but even back in the day, I feel like confessionals in the diary room were much more impactful, because that's when you got more of the authenticity of what people were actually thinking and doing maneuvering-wise. You don't really get that anymore. I know there was a few with Vince this year, and there were some with his relationship in particular, but you weren't really getting that. Again, you get a few a season, but it wasn't anything like it has been. So
it's not true.
I would like to bring that back as well. Bring back the authentic diary rooms. Let these people really talk about what they really think, because I think that's
Brittany Haynes.
lacking.
Brittany Haynes, one of the best confessionals ever in the show.
Yeah.
She said the other day, she's like, yeah, just go into the diary room with a bad mood and speak your mind, because if you do that and it's from your true authentic self, you'll get good diary rooms. Ultimately, no one does that anymore. You can tell they're scripted because of the way people talk about them. They're speaking in this over the top voice of like, oh, Vinny the Lip, he did like it's very performative.
Ava, Jimmy,
come on, guys, like, this is not just going in there pissed off. If you're pissed off at him, then speak your mind, but don't do it in this over performative way that doesn't really feel truly authentic. It doesn't feel it to the viewer. I'm saying it doesn't feel it. Maybe for you it does, but like for the audience, us people watching it, it feels very acting wise, and I'm not here to watch an acting film.
Yeah.
So ultimately,
it's just inauthentic. I don't like it. And there's always been people like that, and there always will be. There's always people that want their 15 seconds of fame.
That's fine.
But we just need to cut it down a little bit, or at least, kind of get them out of wanting to use Big Brother as their vehicle for that. Go on a different show. Go do some weird YouTube thing. I know that was a thing. One of the ex Big Brother people was on that was kind of ostracized from the show, rightfully so.
Yes,
he was on some like weird YouTube version of Big Brother. So go do that instead.
Go do that. And, we like our show here. The actual, I'm with you there.
So Mike, that was episode 3. That was a great time. We will be back shortly in a few days with Survivor. We'll talk about that episode, presumably, and see how that show
Already got
shaping
a
up.
sneak peek, by the way. I don't know if you saw the commercial, but we got a sneak peek for episode 2.
Yeah, there was an extended one. I did like that. So I'm excited to see how it's going to go, because the one they showed at the end of last episode was so weak. I was really disappointed.
Yeah,
they need to make those previews a little bit juicier. But yeah, Survivor is really heating up. It seems like I'm getting a little more excited for the season. I know we were talking on the cast a lot.
Sucks. I think the cast sucks, but I'll be invested.
Yeah, I just want to see how it goes. You know, I'm a big Survivor guy. I'm going to give it a chance, and we'll see how it goes.
I got 50 on my mind. Yeah, I got season 50 on my mind, so I'm just thinking about that.
It's in the horizon. We can see 50 where there's actual good game players on that season.
Right.
And 49,
we can get excited.
Getting us there. You know, we're pedaling along.
It's an appetizer.
It's good.
It's an appetizer. Well, hopefully it's a good appetizer.
I've been watching Amazing Race. Mike might start. We'll see. We'll probably won't talk about it much because
I'm locked on the challenge.
How you can? Oh yeah, you're a challenge guy.
I'm locked on the challenge. Yeah. So it's the end game for that too. Now we finally got our final partners here with 12 groups to go. So.
Yeah, and as far as the sports realm is concerned, we will be doing NBA month. Basically, we're going to do an Eastern Conference preview, then a Western Conference preview in the coming weeks. We'll try to sneak some football in there as well. So it's a busy time here at the Gurus.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot, but here we are. I'm glad Big Brother is over, and I'm glad we got that off our chests. But we got a lot more exciting things on the horizon that we can talk about. And what an episode. So I'm X. That's Mike. We will be on your screens very shortly. Have a great night.